When you're playing one of the worst teams in the league, it's all about meeting the standard. How the Magic were challenged to do that and succeeded today on Locked On Magic.
You are Locked On Magic, your daily Orlando Magic podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
And you are indeed Locked On Magic. Today is March 3rd. It will be March 4th, 2026. My name is Philip Rossman-Reich. I'm the senior writer over at OrlandoMagicDaily.com, credentialed member of the Orlando Magic media since the 2012 season, coming to you today from the Kia Center. On today's episode of Locked On Magic, the Orlando Magic were challenged to meet their standard after kind of a mediocre first half. That's probably being generous. After an uneven first half, how the Magic met that challenge. Plus, Goga Bitadze fills in and continues to prove his worth. We'll get to that coming up here in just a moment. First, we want to thank you again for making Locked On Magic part of your day every day. No matter when you listen to us, whether it's first in the morning, whether it's right when we upload, we truly appreciate you making Locked On Magic part of your day every day. You can make Locked On Magic even bigger part of your day by being one of our Orlando Magic dailies, our everydayers who listen 5 days a week, who listen on the weekends when we do our weekend episodes, who make us part of your regular podcast rotation, to make us your first listen of the day, who are part of our everydayer club. We want to thank you for helping make the Locked On Magic community such a great and growing community. And we want to thank you for helping make the Locked On Podcast Network the #1 sports podcast network. It's your team every day. Today's episode of Locked On Magic is brought to you by Gametime. Download the Gametime app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDON for $20 off your first purchase. The Orlando Magic faced a challenge. It wasn't necessarily the Washington Wizards. It wasn't necessarily the Wizards. Listen to our friends at Locked On Wizards. They have a lot to talk about. I'm sure they're very excited about Thursday. We'll see Trae Young here in about a week. In a little more than a week, next Thursday. But the Magic were not playing the Wizards tonight. In fact, most of the time, the Magic are playing themselves. They're playing against their standard and the level of play that they expect of themselves and the things that they expect them to do. And particularly when you are playing a team like the Wizards, down to 9 dressed players, without a formal center on the roster. A team that is just going to try and outwork you and outgrit you because they may not have the talent. And Washington's got some talent. I do really like a lot of these young players on Washington, and they're hurt, and they're probably banking on another draft pick right now. The Magic were not playing the Washington Wizards. They were playing themselves. They're playing against the standard they set for themselves. And ultimately, their success and whether this turned out to be a good game or not would not be determined by the score. Because, look, there was a feeling throughout the course of the game that the Magic could simply out-talent the Wizards. They started the game off hot. Defensively, were just hounding Washington, got up by 12, and then kind of hit cruise control for the rest of the first half. Washington got a little rhythm, saw some shots go in. It's a 3-point game at the end of the first quarter, 3-point game at halftime when the Magic had plenty of opportunities to extend that lead out. And so the Magic had to face the third quarter, the quarter that has bugged them the last 2 games and has frankly bugged them for most of the season. They had to come out with that intensity. They had to come out and play Magic basketball. And in this game, on this night, they met that challenge. And sure, I hear what you're saying. It's just the Wizards. And you're right. It is just the Wizards. There are bigger challenges ahead. There are things the Magic will need to clean up. But the Magic did what this game called for them to do. The Magic found their groove, found their identity, found their standard, and delivered a win. And I know you're going to hate me for saying this. Hey, they won by 17. They led by as much as 25. Like, they won this game running away. They put the hammer down in the third quarter, did not look back. Led by 13 after the third quarter, did not look back. Or won the third quarter by 13, 40-27. Did not look back one bit. They got, we've talked a little bit about this. They did not get bored with the simple. Paolo Banchero, the Wizards had no one who could stop Paolo Banchero and no one with size to defend Banchero. So they dumped the ball to him in the post. He didn't settle for jumpers. He got to the rim, made quick, decisive moves. They didn't double quick enough. And he scored 37 points and dominated this game. The Magic were 1 for 11 from three. Finally, they got some threes to fall, and that is how they started to separate themselves and get back into this game. And yeah, their defense did a lot of the work too. The Magic have struggled to do this all year. We've seen it time and time again with leads. They start to do a little too much. They do get bored with the simple, and that is a trait of young teams. We talked about, I know, at points last year, that you can't get bored with the simple. You have to do what you do and do it every night. And that is why the Magic are sitting here with a comfortable 17-point win. That's why the Magic are sitting here able to get their starters and get their key players some time on the bench in the fourth quarter. It's why this is a celebratory win, because the Magic thoroughly dominated the Wizards in almost every aspect. And so again, I'm not going to sit here and pretend the Magic were perfect. There were flaws defensively. They gave up too many offensive rebounds. They, got outworked in certain areas. They didn't shoot the ball particularly well. They did hot dog it a little bit, especially in that first half. But when the Magic met in the locker room at halftime, and Jamal Mosley challenged this team to come out with the focus and intensity and intention that they would need to win the game, they answered. And no matter the opponent, how often has this team done that this year? How often has this team come out and blown the doors open? How often has this team asserted itself, doing the same thing over and over again? The last two games, remember, several players said they went away from what worked. That did not happen tonight. And yeah, again, the Wizards are not a formidable opponent. The Wizards are a team that's going to make mistakes. They're not going to be perfect. They don't have the personnel to handle you at your best. And so this game was very much about how the Magic play their game, how focused the Magic are. Do they let the other team's jersey affect how they play? Do they, this is a trap game. Do they let the other team dictate their effort, their energy, what they do? And yeah, for stretches that happened. And for stretches, the Wizards caught the Magic napping, because Orlando, again, sort of felt like they could out-talent them. But that's not how this game played out in the end. That's not how this game ultimately played out. The Magic were challenged to meet the standard. They met the standard, and they delivered a big win, a nice win. And that's all that needs to be said. One of the big storylines in this game was the return of Goga Bitadze to the starting lineup. Let's talk about how Goga stepped in and what that says about the Magic coming up here in just a moment. But first, today's episode of Locked On Magic is brought to you by our friends over at TurboTax. It is tax time. But for a lot of us, the old way of doing taxes is a lot. Trying to book an appointment that's not the most convenient, sitting in a waiting room with a stack of papers, emailing back and forth and wondering if they really get your situation. But this year, you're getting a major upgrade. Into a TurboTax now has in-person locations nationwide. You can meet face-to-face with a real tax expert, and your documents get uploaded straight to your TurboTax app on the spot. And just like that, you're done. Your TurboTax expert works to get you every dollar you deserve, while you get real-time notifications as you go about your day. It's the relief of walking in and meeting a real person and walking out knowing your taxes are being handled right. Head to TurboTax.com/local to find a store near you and book your appointment. Again, that's TurboTax.com/local. We want to thank you again for making Locked On Magic part of your day every day. We want to thank you for helping make the Locked On Podcast Network the #1 sports podcast network. If you haven't done so already, go check out our Everydayer Club. The Everydayer Club is your access to the next level of Locked On fandom. You get access to the ad-free audio feed of this show, plus access to the Locked On Discord server so you can chat with other Magic fans as well as other NBA fans. On that Discord server, I provide my 3 thoughts after every quarter. That does not go on my public feeds. It's only for my everydayer clubs and my subscribers. You can check that out again at lockedonmagic.supercast.com. That's lockedonmagic.supercast.com or lockedonpodcast.com/everydayer. The Magic we're dealing with some injuries. And look, would Anthony Black have played today if the Magic were facing the Pistons or some other team? I don't know. Maybe, perhaps. He was probable yesterday. Maybe woke up, didn't feel great. Wendell Carter went through a shooting slot, had a sore ankle. He was a late scratch as well. This is a game where the Magic could afford to sit some guys and make sure everybody's healthy, because there are bigger games and more important games. And frankly, the Magic can probably survive with what they have. And obviously they did. They won this game running away. This game was not particularly close, even though the Wizards kept it close in the first half. And so with Wendell Carter out, in stepped Goga Bitadze. Goga Bitadze has been in and out of the rotation all year long, really for much of the last 2 years. And for the Magic, he had not really played very much over the last few weeks. In fact, I'm going to pull up his game logs here so I could give you the exact date that he last played meaningful minutes. Goga Bitadze had not played since Phoenix, played 8:43 against the Suns on February 21st. He has not played more than 10 minutes in a game since Charlotte on January 22nd. Goga Bitadze has been essentially out of the rotation, just kind of on the bench waiting for an opportunity once again. And this is what is special about him and special about this team. Wendell Carter's out, Goga Bitadze's in the starting lineup, and it's like he didn't miss a beat. Goga Bitadze's stat line is not super impressive. 21 and a half minutes, 21-28, 9 points, 6 rebounds, 3 assists. Did have a block, 5 for 8 from the foul line. But his presence at the rim, his presence as a roller, his presence as a rebounder were all vital for the Magic to take this game. Washington did not have a traditional center. The Magic could have easily said, you know what, we're going to match Washington's size and speed. We're going to go with Jonathan Isaac at that center position. Jonathan Isaac was a casualty in this game. He only played 5 minutes, which is going to make my article tomorrow about Jonathan Isaac playing really well, a little off. They could have easily gone with Jonathan Isaac to deal with Julian Reese. And I don't think that would have been a mistake, because Jonathan Isaac has been playing well. But the Magic said, no, we need to stick to who we are. It's not about having that switchability. It's about the hard screening and the gritty defense that we could get from a guy like Goga Bitadze. And so Goga's number was called for the first time in weeks, first time in a month for major minutes. And he delivered a big showing. And everyone on the team was super appreciative of it. And so, we're looking and hunting for all these clues that there's a disconnect somewhere in that locker room. And look, maybe there is, maybe there isn't. But while there are issues and while there are things that aren't clicking the way that you would hope for 60 games into the season, there are still a lot of signs that this team is fighting and striving to do everything they can. And what Goga Bitadze did filling in at center for Wendell Carter is a sure sign that this team is still fighting, is still trying to make the most of their opportunities, is still trying to take this big step. I say this all the time. You're going to need everybody on your roster at some point during the season. That's just the reality. If you don't spend a roster spot on someone that you're not going to trust to play. And Goga Bitadze's obviously earned some trust. He's been effective in starting roles. He's been effective when given the opportunity. And this was a game that the Magic needed Goga to step in. They couldn't have him be in foul trouble or him doing his push defense or him not being a factor. They needed him to play his role. And that is what Goga is just so effective at. He plays his role exceptionally well. He plays his role really well. And especially when he's in the starting lineup, he knows what he's supposed to do. Now, can he get overzealous? Can he, does he lose some discipline sometimes? Sure. And that's why he's in and out of the rotation. But when Goga's on, when he's disciplined, when he's doing all the right things, he's as much of a factor as anything else. And I think the team responded to how Goga played this game. And obviously everyone's super happy for Goga to get this opportunity because this is a team. These are guys that genuinely like each other and know how good each other is, even if the pieces haven't quite fit together this season. It's not clear how long Wendell Carter's going to be out. Sore ankle, could miss another game on Thursday, could play on Thursday and be fine. Wendell Carter's had the healthiest season of his career. But knowing you have that security blanket in Goga Bitadze, knowing you have that guy that you can dust off after weeks on the shelf, and he comes in and makes a major impact like this, that is a valuable thing. That is a big thing. And again, yes, you're playing the Wizards. No offense to our friends at Locked On Wizards. Go listen to them. They're very excited for Thursday's game with Trae Young debuting. We'll see Trae Young here in a week. Yes, it's just the Wizards. But you still got to do the job. And the Magic did the job tonight. There's not a lot to say about this game, as you can clearly see. Let's go through the rest of the box score. We'll talk about individual performances. We'll get to that coming up here in just a moment. But first, today's episode of Locked On Magic is brought to you by our friends over at Gametime. There's nothing like being in an NBA arena, the crowd, the energy, the moment. Getting tickets, though, that part, not always so simple. That's why Gametime has become the go-to app for scoring tickets fast without the hassle. It puts the advantage back where it belongs, with the fans. If you're trying to come to the Kia Center for Thursday's game against Dallas Mavericks, we don't yet know if Cooper Flagg's going to play. Gametime has the best seats in the house. You get all in price up front. So when you look at the ticket, you know exactly what you're going to pay. There's no surprise fees at checkout. Plus, you'll be able to see the view from the seat before buying, making that decision even easier. You get that digital view, so you know exactly what the court's going to look like before you buy your tickets. And they have great last-minute options too, with NBA tickets showing up at solid prices. Everything feels quick, intuitive, and stress-free from start to finish. Take the guesswork out of buying NBA tickets with Gametime. Download the Gametime app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDON for $20 off your first purchase. That's code LOCKEDON, LOCKEDON, for $20 off. Download the Gametime app today, and remember, it's gametime.co, not .com. Let's run through the final box score as the Orlando Magic defeat the Washington Wizards 126-109. Again, you can tell not a lot in this game. You know, this was simply a better team in the Magic doing the things they need to do and dominating a team that is shorthanded on the second night of a back-to-back and at times struggling to break this defense. Like, again, Washington is going to do really simple things. And if they're effective at those simple things, they're a very dangerous team. They've got a lot of really interesting players, whether it's Bilal Coulibaly, who I really like, Trey Johnson, who's an interesting rookie. They have Bub Carrington. They got some interesting players. And obviously, Alex Sarr on the bench and Anthony Davis and Trae Young on the bench as well as Keshawn George, who's had a really nice year for the Wizards. I'm not here to put down the Wizards. I like what they're doing. I really love the young guys on this team, but they are young, and it's clear how young they are, and it's probably also clear what the Wizards' goals are for the rest of the season. The Magic still had to do the job, and that's the most important thing that I always have to stress is, yes, you're expected to win this game. Yes, you're expected to dominate this game, but you still have to do it, and you do deserve credit, even if it's expected, that you dominate this game. This game was really all about Paolo Banchero. This was, because of the opponent, I don't want to call this the best game that Paolo's played all year, but he dominated this game in a way that he just has not dominated games all year, and he just took advantage of a team that did not have a way to cover him, did not bail them out with bad shots and settling for jumpers. He went to the basket, scored at the rim at will, and really just did whatever he wanted to do. I'm going to pull up the game chart here to illustrate that in a moment. But Paolo scored 37 points. He shot 15 for 21 from the floor. Love him getting 21 shots after last game. Only 1 for 2 from 3. Love that. 6 for 7 from the foul line. He added 5 rebounds, 6 assists, did have 2 turnovers, but was largely strong on that end. More importantly, Paolo was 13 for 14. So yes, 14 of his 21 shots came right in the restricted area where he was 13 of 14. And that didn't even count opportunities where he got to the foul line. This was a guy who was putting extreme pressure on the rim. And that sets the tone for everything. Washington was single covering him. They didn't have the size to lock him up. Orlando made it a point to get him the ball in the post. It's one area, according to Synergy, that he's above average offensively is in the post. And the Magic have to find ways to get him the ball in the post more often. It allows him to survey the defense. He can make quicker moves that way. He can operate closer to the basket, use his size and his strength a lot more. The Magic do need to find ways to get him in the post. And again, some of that is they really can't because they don't have enough playmaking and creation without him. But Paolo was just dominant in all fronts, and the Magic did a really good job getting him the ball where he can dominate completely. Again, only 1 for 2 on mid-range jumpers outside the paint, 0 for 3 in the paint outside the restricted area. This is the exact kind of game you want from Paolo. Just made his living at the rim, and you love to see that. Desmond Bane had 25 points, 7 for 10 shooting, 3 for 5 from 3, 8 for 8 from the foul line. Bane was aggressive getting downhill and aggressive going to the basket. Didn't really get the threes going. I think he was 0 for 1 from 3 at halftime. Really, those threes were such a big factor in the Magic ultimately pulling away. They were 1 for 11 in the first half. They finished 9 for 14 in the second half. And again, that's a big reason why they were able to pull away. Whether it was Desmond Bane, whether it was Javon Carter, Jalen Suggs hit some threes, Tristan da Silva hit some threes. The Magic really they took care of their business at that end. And they started moving the ball a lot better and getting those open shots. And they got open shots in the first half. They just missed them. And you have to live with that a little bit. You just feel the air rush out of the balloon, though, when you miss those wide open threes, just because of the scarring on this team. But Desmond Bane was really huge. Again, just the nail in the coffin for this Washington team. Orlando surprisingly did not get a lot of scoring outside of those two. So that's 62 of the Magic's 126 points. It's more than half. That's almost half of their points coming from 2 players. But they get 10 points from Jalen Suggs, 5 for 9 shooting, did not make a 3, added 9 assists. Really great ball movement, really good energy and intensity from him. Really on both ends. I like Jalen Suggs' game tonight as well. They get 8 points from Tristan da Silva. He was 2 for 4 from 3, 9 rebounds from da Silva. Had some defensive slip-ups here and there, but largely did good things. He's such a good help defender. Watch him on his help defense. He's really good about sitting in gaps and being the low man, especially. So he's someone that they really, really like on that end as well. Goga Bitadze, like I mentioned, had 9 points. They get 10 points off the bench from Javon Carter, who's 3 for 7 from 3. Added 6 assists as well. Orlando has 34 assists on 42 field goals. That tells you a lot about the ball movement and how much the Magic were able to get things moving. They shot 32 of 37 from the foul line. Again, just all these signs of their aggression. They had 62 points in the paint. Washington had 60. So again, some things to clean up for sure. But Orlando largely took care of their business. 19-9 in fast break points was really huge as well. They also got 10 points from Mo Wagner, just typical Mo Wagner stuff. Did some good work in the post. Again, Washington didn't have a traditional center, so there's a lot of stuff there. But Mo also struggling a little bit on the defensive end, I would say. I think there was definitely some areas where he was just late on rotations, and he's never been a great defender to begin with. But I think since coming back from the injury, he's still kind of picking up his defense as well. And then Jett Howard scored 12 points, a lot of that coming at the very, very end of the game. Like I mentioned, not a lot to this game. Again, I don't want to dwell too much on this. I'm ready to move on. This is the game that the Magic needed to have against this team. They answered the challenge. They played to their standard. They played the way that they need to play, and that put them in the perfect position to win this game, and win it running away, which is exactly what the Magic needed to do. That there just is not a lot to say, and there's frankly not a lot to take away from this game, other than the Magic just did the job. And it was good to see them do the job. It was good to see them get all that done. And that's what you expect in a game like this. So Orlando takes care of their business, and they defeat the Washington Wizards 126-109. And that's really all we have to say about that. But that's going to do it for me today. I want to thank you all again for listening to today's episode of Locked On Magic. Of course, find me on Twitter at @PhilipRR_OMD and on Blue Sky at PhilipRR. You can subscribe to the podcast on Apple Podcasts, Stitcher, TuneIn, Himalaya, Google Play, Spotify, Odyssey, and all the places you download podcasts to your podcast-enabled listening device. You can check us out as well on YouTube. Just search for Locked On Magic. For the latest on the Orlando Magic, be sure to check out OrlandoMagicDaily.com. You can find us on Twitter at OMagicDaily. And for even more Orlando Magic content, be sure to check out my Patreon page, your Orlando Magic Hub, at patreon.com/Orlando Magic Hub. Also, be sure to check out our Everydayer Club at lockedonmagic.supercast.com. With the Everydayer Club, you get access to the ad-free audio feed of this podcast, as well as the Locked On Discord server, so you can chat with other Magic and NBA fans. Again, that's lockedonmagic.supercast.com. As always, thank you for your support. For those of you on video, we're going to send you to the first ever 24/7 national NBA YouTube channel. On audio, make sure you make your second listen to NBA Game Night on Locked On NBA to get the action from around the NBA. The Sixers lost tonight, so the Magic are now officially a half game behind the Sixers for the 6th seed. The Heat did win as well, so still in a virtual tie with Miami. Again, Orlando is 2 games in hand on the Heat, so same number of wins. Magic have 2 fewer losses, I believe, or 1 fewer loss, or something like that. I think they have. I forget what it is, but you know how it is. But that's good for me today. I want to thank you all again for listening to today's episode of Locked On Magic. We'll be back tomorrow with a special guest to chat about NBA issues in general. Very excited about that. Recorded that interview today, so you have that to look forward to tomorrow. But until then, for Orlando Magic Daily and Locked On Magic, this has been Philip Rossman-Reich from the Kia Center. We'll see you all again next time for another episode of Locked On Magic.